I think there's been a mischaracterization of the, mostly in the case of mass shootings, young white men who admittedly commit heinous, violent, unconscionable acts. That how could a person not be certifiably mentally unstable to commit such an offense? But the facts are different. Between 2016 rather, and 2022, there were between 336, depending on what year you're talking about, and 690 mass shootings in this country. Mass shooting defined by 4 or more people die. This year, from January 1st to June 15th today, 2023, we are at 294 mass shootings in this country. It's an interesting psychological exercise to try to understand what causes people to do this sort of thing. The common misconception is, and I think it's sort of spurred by the political class, is that these people are crazy. They've got to be crazy. The language people use, insane, maniacs, homicidal. Our ex-president, in his colorful words, wacko people do these things. Well, here are the facts. Retrospective psychological evaluations of the young men who are performing these acts of violence. Most of them are socially isolated, unskilled interpersonally, often neglected at home, often neglected, sometimes bullied in school, detached from relationships with females, sitting alone in the cafeteria, perceive themselves as being badly mistreated, have perceptions that I'm good enough that I should have a better standing with my community, in my peer group. I should have relationships with girls. Many of these young men are immersed in the culture of video games. The research about video games is crystal clear. A linear relationship, more time watching violent Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, you name it, these games that are, the goal of the game is to kill or be killed. They are more likely to perceive the world as a dangerous place. They are more likely to have violent fantasies, and they are more likely, again, in a one-to-one relationship between time and the likelihood that they themselves will commit acts of violence. So when they're face-to-face with some pretty girl or somebody they would want to have a relationship with, they don't know how to act, and they get classified as strange. And the teachers will say, in school districts, I worked in the schools around here for 28 years, teachers will say, watch out for that kid. But are they mentally ill in terms of a specific diagnosable condition? The answer is no. 4%, that's the statistic, 4% of the people who have committed these many, many acts now in the thousands over the years, 4% of them have a significant diagnosable mental disorder. So what do we think of when we're thinking of severe mental illness, the kind that would justify somebody picking up an AR and walking into a Parkland school and shooting dozens of kids? Are they delusional? Do they believe things to be true that are not true? No. Are they hallucinating? No. Are they in some sort of a bipolar manic episode? No. Might they be depressed because of their situation? Yes, they could be depressed, certainly. Might they be anxious, worried? Yes, especially socially anxious, because in that world they have little or no success. But when you talk about severe symptomatology, they aren't in the DSM-5 in that realm. 4% of them are. The politicians now talk about this is a mental health problem, so we need to expand the provision of mental health services. Well, we're not that great at providing mental health services. I mean, that's a fact. There are neglected populations, there are rural populations that don't have access, there are geographic limitations and impediments. But do you think, see, my contention, Dave, is that the people who commit these things, even if Dr. Jones was their next door neighbor who had an office and mental health services were available to them readily, they're not going to walk in that door voluntarily and talk and say, I've got a problem, I need to get better. Timothy McVeigh was not going to walk into my office and get help. Dylan Klebold, Columbine shooter, was not going to walk into my office. They are isolated, angry, venge-filled young men who go online, find a support group, are strengthened in their revenge fantasies that they're going to make a name for themselves somewhere, and they're going to get a gun and go commit a murder. And that's who these people are.